Hi everybody, it's Chris, and welcome to another video by the Infinity System. We had to think very long and very hard about whether or not to make this video. Sounds familiar to our longtime viewers, eh? But we decided after seeing what was going on online and a lot of the reactions to this video that there were some points that need to be addressed. And warning, some of the opinions that we're about to express might not be popular ones, because this issue has been skirted around before, particularly in the DID community, and in a way, we're kind of grateful that McLean forced, the hospital forced this out into the open. But we'll get to that. For those of you who are not aware or who have not seen the video itself, and we will be placing links in the description, McLean Hospital produced a video and uploaded it called Social Media and the Rise of Self-Diagnosed Dissociative Identity Disorder. It was a series of talks called Grand Rounds that the McLean Hospital holds every spring and summer, basically, which serve as a form of continuing education. But who is the McLean Hospital? Well, the McLean Hospital was founded in 1811, and when it opened in 1818, it was the first hospital in New England and the fourth in the whole of the United States for treating mental illnesses specifically. In 1882, it opened the first psychiatric school of nursing. In 1888, it was the first psychiatric hospital in the U.S. to establish basic and clinical laboratories to study the role of biological factors in mental illness. So way back then, in 1888, they were looking at the mind-body connection, and this finding and hypothesizing that if you treat one, it will affect the other. Currently, McLean Hospital admits 9,000 children and adults to inpatient and residential care. It provides 58,000 day treatment and outpatient visits across the state. It has 7 satellite programs across the state of Massachusetts, and last was seen in the movie Girl Interrupted, which we have not seen, but there was a point of data that might help to, classify this for you. So, what are grand rounds in a hospital setting? Well, as we just said, they are a method of medical education and inpatient care consisting of presenting the medical problems and treatment of a particular patient to an audience consisting of doctors, pharmacists, residents, and medical students, and also the public, because they are free of charge. The professionals get some continuing educational credits as well off of this, and they are offered from September through June as weekly lectures. The Grand Round conferences, as we mentioned, are free and open to the public, and the rest get a continuing educational credit. So this is a group of professionals getting together to talk about issues that they deal with there in the hospital. So we have an accredited hospital dating all the way back to the 1800s, giving accredited talks by accredited physicians. And speaking of the accredited physician, now that we know who McLean Hospital is and what the Grand Rounds are, what about the guy who had the gumption to get up there and basically call out iatrogenic or endogenic DID systems? Well, number one, he didn't specifically call them out. The main thrust of the whole lecture was whether or not social media and the depictions of it that are found online are causing an uptick in the number of parents and school officials and just plain old individuals asking for DID diagnoses. They went online, they've looked it up, they've matched the symptoms, and they figure, oh, I've got DID, please diagnose me for this. Or they call their mom and dad and say, Mom, Dad, I've got DID, and Mom and Dad are like, okay, let's get you in for a diagnosis. This is what the whole thrust of his thing is about, but we'll get to that because we will summate it for those of you who want a TLDR. So the rest of you who have already seen it, consider this a refresher course. So what about this guy? What about Dr. Matt Robinson, or Dr. Matthew Robinson, PhD? Well, he is the Director of Clinical Services at the Hill Center, the Director of the Outpatient Trauma Center, and the Adult Outpatient Services. He is a research psychologist on dissociative disorders and the trauma research program for them. He is an instructor in psychology at the Department of Psychiatry in Harvard Medical School. He is the co-director of the Outpatient Trauma Clinic and the Outpatient Services at McLean Hospital, and an instructor, as we said, at Harvard Medical School. He provides individual, group, and couples treatment for trauma and dissociative disorders. Let's see, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and possibly 8 degrees. One of them BS, one of them an MS, PhD. It goes on and on and on. Suffice it to say, he's an expert. This is not some fly-by-your-pants guy in a small trauma center out in BFE. This is a professional. This is a professional with over 6 degrees. That's a hell of a lot of knowledge. Who teaches in an accredited university, Harvard, who works at an accredited hospital, McLean. This is not just some off-the-wall lecture. This is a professional in a professional environment speaking to professionals about DID and about something that he and many other members of the profession have noticed and are deeply concerned about. So now that we know who the McLean Hospital is, who Dr. Robinson is, and exactly what the grounds are, let's go ahead and give you the TLDR on the actual lecture itself. Now, one of the first things that he does is he states that he cannot verify who or who does not have DID in the video clips that he will use to illustrate the lecture. He also states that it's used for illustrative purposes and was shared freely and publicly online, which is absolutely true. Now, we're going to jump ahead of the game and say that one of our main detractors with this is the fact that the systems in question, that the creators in question, were not contacted previous to uploading this video or to giving this lecture. Now, this could probably be attributed to a couple of things. Number one, it's a professional lecture for professionals. It may just simply have never crossed his mind that he needed to reach out and or credit. Maybe a bad bit of professionalism there, we can't speak to that. But also there is the side of it that says, once you put something out there on the internet, it is out there forever. If you don't want to appear a certain way to others, don't upload content that shows you in that way. Does it excuse not contacting? No, it doesn't, but you have to remember, guys, everything that you put out, everything that we put out is going to be viewed, can be found again, and if you feel a little called out, then yeah, you probably were. The second thing that he reports is that his own patients, and the majority of the people that he comes in and are eventually diagnosed, report a strong disconnect between these social media portrayals of switching and other aspects of it than they have themselves. Most patients are filled with fear and doubt and denial and would rather have anything else in the world. Another point that will come into play here soon. So there is a disconnect that the professionals have noticed between those who have come in because of other things and are diagnosed with DID versus those who are coming in already self-diagnosed because of what they saw in social media. And there's been a much greater swing on that. He does go into some detail. Again, we're giving you the TLDR, not the whole lecture. So these are things that conflict with a lot of his patients. It's conflict is common, confusion is common, particularly when you're at the beginning of your diagnosis. And seeing these things online that may not match up with your experience can be jarring. Online switching is often shown as fun. We know it's not. We're fortunate that we co-con a lot with most of us, but the hard switches and whatnot that are demonstrated freely on social media, for one reason or the other, we don't have those. I'm sorry, we don't have those. We don't have the let's put our head down and close our eyes and, oh, suddenly I'm someone else. It doesn't work that way. Not for us and not biologically. And this is the point where we're just going to have to start wading in, and we're going to say that this is probably going to piss a lot of you off there. But here's the deal. We have never made any excuses, or we've never made anything other than completely clear that we are a traumagenic system. And we believe in diagnosis, professional diagnosis, and we have always held that self-diagnosis is profoundly dangerous. The dissociative conditions are extremely complex. DID is extremely complex. It has a very, very specific set of symptoms that have to be met before the diagnosis is given, and only then after everything else has been eliminated. As we said in one of our videos, DID is not like the common cold. It can't be caught like a bad flu, and it does not go away. Now, does this mean that you're not valid, that you may not have some of these systems? No, it does not, and he is very careful to make that distinction in here. In fact, towards the end and in his conclusion, he basically says that there may well be an entire other category of folks who are displaying the symptoms of DID, but do not actually have DID themselves. As we've explained previously, for example, in our Learning to Love Again, Sex, Trauma, and DID, we go over the theory of structural dissociation and how that works, with PTSD being at the top and DID being at the bottom, and OSDD and whatnot being in between, CPTSD. Every level below is going to have the symptoms of the level above. And there are a lot of what are called comorbid conditions or similar effects that go across a wide range of psychiatric illnesses. For example, there's a big difference between hearing voices as DID and hearing voices as a schizophrenic. One is outside, one is inside. There's a big difference. And that will inform the professional's course of treatment. You don't want to be giving a heavy antipsychotic drug to somebody who's not a schizophrenic and might have DID. This is why it is so terribly important to get an actual diagnosis so that you know, and your therapist and your doctors know what you're dealing with, what you have, and then can prepare the best treatment plan for you. Without that diagnosis, without knowing, you're shooting in the dark. And no, not everyone is going to have access to diagnosis. You're going to have to do the best you can. What if I don't have access? What if I can't afford it? Do the best you can. But as soon as you can, get in there to get evaluated so that you know exactly what you've got. And now that we've alienated probably a full at least a third of our audience, let's move on. McLean itself has been inundated with requests to assess young individuals for DID due to self-diagnosing based off of inaccurate representations found online. A large percentage of these report no trauma history. And we've said this before, and we're going to say it again. If you don't have trauma, you don't have DID. Does trauma have to be sexual or physical abuse? No, it can also be emotional abuse. It can be the deprivation of human needs. It can be being caught in a war zone. Anything that is a repeated severe trauma over the course of time before the age of 9 to 10, generally around the age 6. So, no, you don't have to be raped. You don't have to be molested, but that, unfortunately, is the most predominant. But do you need the trauma? Can you be a system without them? Nope. Sorry. You may be OSDD. You might have CPTSD, but you don't have DID if you don't have the trauma during that very specific time range. We've went over exactly why and how that changes in several of our videos, so we're not going to go over it here again. But the trauma needs to be there. It has to be there for DID. Period. It's just the science is holding that up. That's the way it works, boys and girls. And if you're not accepting of that, you need to do some more research. Frankly, yeah, we're in for a penny in for a pound at this point, so here we go. Years of clinical research and work show that DID sufferers show shame, fear, and hide. Overt switching is rare. Even we don't overtly switch on camera. Yeah, we've had a few co-con moments, but have you ever seen us actually do a full hard switch online? No. Why? Because we don't show them, and because we won't show them. These are private things. We don't sensationalize that kind of thing. Oh, but Chris, you've got Percival comes on and he's all dressed up. Rosemary comes on and he's all dressed up. How is that any different? Because we're not showing us switching into them. We're giving them their own time and their own way to do it. We're not pre-planning it. This is why sometimes it can take a long time for us to produce an episode. This is why Rosemary hasn't put anything up. Because if she doesn't feel like it, it's not going to happen, and we're not going to push it. We're not here to entertain you. We're here to share our journey and pass on some educational material that we find that's credible. We're here to show you that you're not that alone, that you're loved, you're strong, and you're not alone. But there's a lot of weed out there for the chaff, guys. A lot of it. And this is something that we have avoided talking about because people get offended. But these are the facts. DID has very, very specific conditions. And this is why it's so dangerous to self-diagnose. But let's move on. He goes into the media representation, United States of Terror, Split, things like that, and how that is not helping the perception of DID in the outside world and within the psychiatric community. And he goes over the history and the basics of DID. Okay, we will recommend at this point, go watch the video. Go watch it. We want you to go watch this because he gives a lot of really great detail, and plus it'll help you to form your own opinion about this as well. He's basically saying that the media representations have delegitimized the diagnosis, that in fact it's done more harm than it has good. So, What about social media? Well, this is where he gets into the meat of it. The content on D&D, he gives things, again, go view the lecture. The content on D&D has risen exponentially, and it is overwhelmingly skewed to entertain rather than to inform. Their rise in content has been tied to the COVID outbreak and social distancing. In other words, we were all stuck inside, so instead of getting out, instead of doing normal things, it caused a focused situation, a petri dish, if you will, where young people who are going through difficult times went online and began to find symptoms in common with this DID. Boom, one thing catches on, the next thing you know, we got a great big explosion of DID-related content and self-diagnosing going on. So Dr. Robinson then goes on to talk a great deal about imitative DID, which is what we're seeing online, or what the professionals are seeing the rise of online. And he goes into it. First off, there's the psychological gain of it. These folks are seeking to understand their identity. The trouble comes is when they begin to label and identify emotions and behaviors as alters, as distinct states, when in fact they're not. There's a big difference between hard switching into an alter and getting frustrated and shutting down. Now, another psychological gain, it creates meaning and it reduces the emptiness. It gives you a feeling of belonging. There is also the aspect of social gain. You get special attention and fascination, followers, subscribers, likes, shares. Again, there's that sense of community. However, it's performative. It gets more attention. The more outrageous and outlandish it is. 17 switches caught on camera. That's not helping us. That's performing. It gets more attention. It may gain clicks. It may gain views, but it's damaging the rest of us in the process. So that's imitative DID. Well, what about genuine DID then? Well, genuine, we've got amnesia and identity fragmentation. We have profound depersonalization and derealization. There is a reluctance and ambivalence about actually getting out there. We'd rather be diagnosed with anything else in the world than have to join this little club. The larger your channel gets, the more responsibility you have to represent the rest of us properly, to present accurately sourced information, to keep yourself on that cutting edge. If you're calling yourself a mental health educator, you damn well better have those letters behind your name, because otherwise you're just a content creator sharing your opinion. And opinions are not facts. As a content creator, small or large, you have a responsibility not only to yourself, but to your audience. And if you find that you become addicted to it, if you find that you've become addicted to looking for that like, for looking for that next hit of serotonin or adrenaline or whatever, when somebody agrees with you, that's not healthy. Is your system destabilizing because of your social media online presence? Any therapist worth their salt would tell you that you need to pull off and restabilize. The social media world is dangerous. It's unpredictable. And for something as specific and as serious as DID, this cannot be treated as a joke or a money-making opportunity or a popularity-making opportunity. You have a responsibility to your viewers and the community at large to present DID in an accurate and factual way. So here's our main thoughts on it. Point number one, they should have contacted the systems to get permission to use their content. That would be the right thing to do. The legal thing to do, however, is to do exactly what they did. It's out there. It's online. It's free information. This was not for profit. This was not for views or clicks or monetized in any way, shape, or form. This was an academic lecture. And they used freely available things out there. I'm sure it didn't take him long to come across those examples. Would it have been refreshing to see some examples of more responsible systems and more identifiable systems and things that would show a better depiction of DID? Yeah, that would have been a nice counterpoint to have seen to help better illustrate the purposes. But it should have they should have at least contacted the systems involved. That is our main detraction with this. And now we're going to get to the calling out. Okay? Major creators allowing or encouraging their viewers to barrage the hospital with negative feedback is irresponsible and reinforces the exact points that he was trying to make. There's an old saying, cut off your nose to spite your face. What the hell is the matter with you? Again, if you're a large or even the largest DIT creator out there, you have a responsibility, a massive responsibility, to make it crystal clear that you do not tolerate that kind of behavior. This is not the type of presentation that we need to be giving. This is not the type of face that we need to be showing to the medical professionals and the psychiatric professionals. The reactions that we've seen are unacceptable. If you want to be taken seriously, if you want people to respect you, if you want people to take you seriously and think of you as a good representative, you need to act like one. There is the matter of perspective. And when you're in the box, when you're not even aware of the box, of being in the box, you don't know. You don't have that proper perspective. You don't have the training and the outside perspective and the professional accreditation. You don't have it. You're not a PhD. You're not a professional. You're not even aware of the box that you're living in until they open up the top and go, hi! And you're like, WTF. We experienced this ourselves. With a lack of perspective. When you are so deep in it, you don't even know that you're in it. And it isn't until later, as you gain understanding, you make the next step, do you realize just how in the dark you truly were. We like to think we know everything. We all do. But we don't. You know who does? You know who knows a lot? You know who can give you the answers? Professionals, physicians, doctors, therapists. Go see one today. So, those are some of our thoughts on the video, and more specifically on the blowback and the actions of creators who have been leading that charge. You're hurting us, and you need to stop. You need to stop pushing false narratives. You need to stop pushing false information and misinformation and misrepresentations. You need to step back for the greater good of the community and seriously take a look at what you're doing and your reasons for doing it. You need to get past that knee-jerk moment of outrage when somebody has just challenged your preconception of yourself and you're just simply going, that's not, you don't know me, you don't know how I think, you don't know how I act. Well, guess what? He's a professional. He does. Are you a professional? So that's it for this time, guys. Hopefully the video itself, again, go watch it, and our thoughts on it have given you something to think about, something to chew on. We don't expect you to agree with us. You may disagree violently with us. That's your right. Speaking of which, in the comment section, we will leave the comment section open to comments. However, follow the rules. You have the right to your own opinion. You have the right to state your opinion. You do not have the right to abuse other people with your opinion. Don't discuss sex, politics, or religion. Don't bring them into this, and just don't troll us. Provided that you mind your P's and Q's and keep things and refrain from personal attacks, those comments will stay up even when they disagree with our own. So at this point, we'd like to go ahead and thank you for watching. And as always, we remind you that you are loved, that you are strong, and that you're not alone. I'm Chris. Thanks for watching.